more convenient when I lived up there, but.
Wait a minute, let's set it. We call the meeting to order. If you would, please stand as we have our invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I forgot what I was supposed to do, Jeff. Charlie, if you would.
Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to live in this great nation. Please be with our citizens and our people in these trying times. Please guide us here tonight to do what's best for our county and our citizens. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'd like to thank each and every one for your attendance tonight. We do appreciate our board members. We got 6 out of 7. David had an appointment to come up. He was unable to make it. Excuse me. We do appreciate Karen and the hard work that she does for this board prior to the meeting and after the meeting. We appreciate our legal counsel and his advice. On behalf of the planning department, we thank everyone that's here tonight. Mr. Hayward, any announcements? Has the judge decided that he's going to tell us that we haven't been doing our job?
No additional orders as of now. I will say that the Grand Dunes appeal has been filed. We've responded, and that now they have an opportunity to do what's called a reply brief. So Mr. Anderson may do that. Looks like he is, and then court will be briefed probably mid-April. Everything will be done, and this is only to the circuit court at this point, not to the first DCA. We're still waiting on the first DCA opinion on some of the others, and then we'll have to address the San Roy Road one that I mentioned at the 2 meetings back.
That's the one that hasn't been filed on the appeal. He sent it back to us here, but there's a chance that.
Yeah, there could be a chance that they appeal, but I'll have to look at the time. They probably don't have but maybe another 10 days if they're going to file an appeal.
Shipman?
Yes, sir. It's his client who owned the property and had put in the application for the variance request to reduce the front setback.
Do you think he's going to?
I haven't heard from them. Usually they're pretty. They'll reach out to us and let us know because they're the same law firm is dealing with the case that's in front of the first DCA right now. And that's the one where the court said Mr. Shipman shouldn't have been allowed to be involved in the case as much as he was. So they're usually, pretty communicative. They haven't reached out to us. I reached out to them probably 2 weeks ago to ask what they plan to do. Haven't heard anything. I haven't pressed them on the matter. I'll follow up and find out. Again, it's up to them. I haven't spoken, to the county attorney, Mr. Atkinson, about it because of, the turnover and him not knowing probably that much about it. But I'll find out from them if the county wishes to appeal. Oftentimes they're usually like, no, and we'll just have you guys rehear the matter. So,
Very good. Anyone here tonight that anticipates speaking before this board, if you would, please stand and raise your right hand and swear that the testimony that you give will be the truth to the best of your knowledge. Please stand. Mr. Kelly, are you just standing? You're not saying that you need to raise your right hand. Go ahead, Hayward.
do you all swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Thank you.
Ms. Kelly Schultz is the new planning department personnel. We're glad to have her here. You taking Mac's place tonight? You making sure Stephen does what he's supposed to do? Stephen okay. First item on the agenda, wait a minute, we have one that we need to speak about Stephen, if you would, number 5, Kaiya Master Plan Amendment Appeal.
Yes, sir. We would like to request a continuance for that appeal until the next meeting, until next month.
And what date is that, Karen?
April 22nd.
April 22nd. Need a motion?
Motion to continue to the April 22nd
Need a
Meeting.
second.
at 5 p.m. at this location.
All in favor, aye.
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 All right, first item on the agenda is a Sebor Variance. Who's here to present that? All right, what's your name? You want to come up to the podium and state your name for the record, please.
Daniel Fields with Cox Pools on behalf of, here for Jeremy Sebor and Mindy Mullins.
One of those pool deals?
Yes, sir, one of those pool deals.
Appreciate you coming. Y'all mess up?
It's hard to say. I've got 3 different surveys and they all are different from one another.
Really? That's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah,
They all go to-
well, in my experience, first time it's ever happened with that many.
Did they all go to Florida?
Did they, I don't know. I'll have to ask. I'll have to send an email out on that one. I'll have to
I
send
saw
an
you
email
had
out.
earlier. Tell us what you want us to do for you.
The pool in question, at Sebor residence, our initial survey, that's what we laid the pool off of.
Who did that survey?
That one. That was with Thomas E. Jenkins and Associates.
Out of Chipley?
Yes, sir.
How many years ago was it? Are they still in business?
That I do not know. It was provided by the homeowners, and I believe it was done in 2001.
Yeah, they kind of, didn't they get put out of business because they did not do good work?
Very well.
That-
Not to my knowledge, I don't know.
They're about the same caliber as probably another one you got on there, so go ahead.
The final survey that we requested after the project was done was through Rare Earth.
I think they're pretty good, I understand.
Yeah, Shannon, yeah, absolutely. We've had a good relationship with them. The
They're-
pool itself is the side setback that's in question, the one off of Dothan Street, the 5-foot setback. There's over 1.5 foot variance between that survey and the final survey. We called in based off, y'all's advice. We hired a third-party surveyor to go out, which was LA Land Survey. They went out, did a survey. Theirs is different from Rare Earth's by roughly 8 inches. So we've got anywhere from 1.5 foot variance to 8 inches to the original that's 1.5 foot difference from the final. So the side setback is what we're requesting, that if it can be reduced from 5-foot side setback to 3.27, because that is where the edge of the pool resides. It's still behind the footprint of the house, but it is into the setback.
I'm looking at the final pool survey by Rare Earth, and we have Birmingham Street, right? And you.
Dothan Avenue is the side, and then 30A is the,
All right, I see Dothan. So what are you asking? You asking for the one on Dothan?
yes, sir.
And that's a 5 foot, or that's a 5 foot?
Yes, sir.
It says 7.5, right?
That one was plotted, from the information that I had gotten from Walton County, that one was plotted from, this house was built in 1953.
And that's a 5 foot setback.
Yes, sir.
And you asking for 1.5 feet, so you asking for, to have a 3.6,
3.27 side setback.
and that's gonna take care of all of these surveyors.
Yes, sir.
Asking for one point what inches?
We're looking for 1.73.
7.3. Is the pool in?
Sir?
Is the pool installed?
Yes, sir.
How
Pool
long-
is completed.
How long has it been completed?
September of 2020.
When did you find this problem?
When the final came out, when we ordered the final was done roughly 5 weeks after plaster. As soon as he had shot that back to us, we saw that we had a discrepancy. We asked that he went back out. He went back out and he goes, this is my survey. What I see out there from the rods, that's what's in place. So we went,
Now that's Rare Earth, right?
yes, sir, that's Rare Earth.
And he's 8 inches off?
No,
Or he's a foot .7 off?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead then. Well,
Once,
who's 8 inches off? Is that, the
from
latest?
this survey to LA Land, based off, y'all's recommendation, hey, let's get a third-party surveyor out there to see if it lines up with either the first one or rare earths, and then that'll eliminate the problem. Well, theirs came back different as well. I brought LA Land survey with me. I don't think y'all have a copy of that.
We don't need it, just tell me how many inches off are they?
They're saying my pool is 3.7 from the
3
7.
inches?
3.7 feet, so I've got 1.3 difference between LA Land.
You mean to tell me they telling you that platted subdivision line is all 3-point-something feet?
That's why I'm here, because I don't have any room to turn at this point.
Pretty significant when you have a platted subdivision.
The road.
The road has nothing to do with a platted subdivision.
One thing that they all have in common, though, is that the portion of this house is roughly into the setback as well, and the house was built a long time ago.
Yeah, we want to probably address that too today. I think what he's saying is that the surveyors have the pool encroaching into the setback a different amount.
Yes,
The lot
correct.
line- But the lot line's okay.
Yes, sir.
That don't make sense, does it?
And the more you dig into it, across all 3 surveys, the width of the property varies. Even from Rare Earth, who did our final, to LA Land, there's a 2-foot discrepancy just in what they consider the length of the property.
That's what I'm saying.
There's,
The way to fix this is to cut the corner of the pool off.
I agree.
I'll do it, I've done it before. I don't want to, but I'll do it.
That's your motion? He's begging that, that's not your motion, look at his.
Man, I've done it before. My back's got a couple more in it, I think.
You had to do it before?
Oh, yes, sir.
How much money would it cost you?
I've had to remove a whole pool before because it was in the setback, and that was roughly about $16,000. That's not me putting it back either.
All right, so what are you asking for? You're asking for a 1.7, you're not going by.
1.73 feet is how much my pool is into the setback, so I need to reduce the side setback of 5 foot down to 3.23.
Okay. We're not gonna deal with LA surveying, because they said you're gonna need more than that, so we're not dealing with that, right?
They said less.
They said less. LA survey was less.
So he
They're
pre- he
3.7.
presented
I need
the-
1.3 to theirs.
He's got the worst case scenario
I got it.
presented.
Go ahead.
That was based off y'all's recommendation, bring worst case scenario.
Sounds good. Anybody has any questions?
Well, what about the encroachment of the house into the 5-foot setback? Do we need to, we don't have to deal with that?
It should be grandfathered in.
I thought
Is there such a thing?
Yeah.
if the house was
Don't
built,
people all the time find mistakes and turn people in?
If it's built in the 50s or whenever it was, or 60s or something like that, if it was built prior to the thing, then I think it's grandfathered. We can check with the county, but
this is center block house, when did they quit building the center block houses? Back then they
No,
didn't.
we still do that today.
Just went through that in the beginning, they didn't grandfather him in. He ended up having, it was built over into the city setback, and, they ended up, the insurance company for the survey company ended up having to buy property from the city. And, then the city gave them a variance to say that it was set over too close to the lot. That just happened literally with.
City of Phoenix and county, that's a whole nother layer.
I was just thinking.
we can ask Steve.
Maybe, let's get back to the horse here. Hayward, why can't we go ahead and grant that house? It's been advertised and it's,
Okay.
But if you granted an easement all the way down the property
Or
line,
side
it
setback.
would satisfy that at the same time.
entirety of the,
Setback.
I was wondering why you was a
I
nominated.
think
to
one
the board.
comment I can make
Yeah, I
is
know.
if you reduce it to 3.22, that covers the house. Because on that rear earth survey, it shows the corner of the house to the side property line.
Hey,
It's
You need to make up
3.22.
your mind what you want us to do. What do you
Well,
want us to
if
do?
the house is in question, that was just,
But tell me what you want us to do. Yes.
If I might ask just a couple of questions,
Sure.
I'm curious. Did the county issue a permit with the 2001 survey?
yes, sir. That's what our approval is based off of.
All right. I believe, and this would be a question more for Mr. Schoen, would the brick pool deck also be subject to the setback? Okay, all right. So the 1.42 to the pool deck is not an issue. All right. I think that this survey was platted by J.B. Hathaway, and he used the round 4-inch concrete monuments. I think that's accurate for the rare earth survey. I don't really see why you'd come up with a huge difference. But if this is worst-case scenario, then I would be in favor of, a variance for the entire eastern boundary side
Very good.
setback.
Is it being the 3.2 or the
We're
3.27?
good. We're good. We're gonna move along. I think you're in pretty good shape. Okay? So sit down, we'll let you come back. You can sit up front there. Stephen, what do you think? Well, I know what you're gonna say, but tell us why you're gonna say it.
Yes, sir. Stephen Schoen, Plan Development Services. If I could have the staff report entered into the record, please.
So enter.
Thank you. I just wanted to address the 3.27 versus the 3.22. Staff did recognize this during the pre-application meeting and advertised at the 3.22 as the worst case kind of scenario in this entire situation. As you can see, the staff report does reflect the opinion that the application does not satisfy the variance portion of the code, and that this was self-created. Granted, it was created through an error in survey work. It was or is not created through a unique circumstance created from the land and building in relation to the code.
We respectfully disagree
Yes, sir.
with the fact, and I think we need, and I'm not saying that being sarcastic, but I think we need to, for the record, explain why this board disagreed with your opinion, and is that whenever there's surveys that is dependent upon and mistakes are made because the surveyor's made an error, then I think that the property owner's done everything that they need to do to try to make sure that it's right, and then when that surveyor makes a mistake, then that's beyond the property owner. So I feel like that the hardship does exist, and I think we need to make that a record because of the appeals that we lose.
I understand, and while I do certainly agree that it's not something that should be held to the property owner, it's just simply, I'm looking at the code, and the code doesn't specify a survey error within the reason for a hardship or other unique
Code does
circumstance.
give the authority to the variance board to make justification to errors that has been made, and
Yes, sir.
we agree. Thank you,
Yes.
Steve.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Anyone here has any comments on this? Anyone in opposition? Anyone in favor? You want to come back up and see if the board has any comments? Do you have anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Done a very good job promoting. Any questions? We're good? Thank you. May I have a seat.
Thank you.
Motion to close the public discussion.
Close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion.
I make a motion, we grant a variance reducing the eastern side setback from 5 feet to 3.22 feet, only over the areas of encroachment of the existing buildings, and include the survey as part of the variance granting.
Sir, what survey?
I'm sorry, the rare earth survey included in our package.
The survey, the buildings and the pool.
Pardon me?
The pool is included, you said the buildings, so the pool was included.
I'm sorry, the only over the distance of the structures being the present structures of the home and the pool.
So not a whole lot.
Yes. Yes, you did include the whole lot line, right?
He was
That's not the motion I was making. I was that was during discussion earlier. My motion's to grant the variance from 5 feet, reducing from 5 feet to 3.22, only over the areas where the structures encroach, present structures encroach, as identified on the rarer survey included in our package, and we make it part of the variance.
How would that, let me ask a really stupid.
Wait a minute. We gotta have a motion and a second, then discussion. I mean, that's procedure.
Second.
Discussion.
How would this affect the fence that appears to be 3.5 feet over the property line too? That,
If it's outside of the property, we can't do anything about that. They gotta move their fence. And they can move it back to the property line.
we do have 2 letters of objection.
I think one of those was for a different pool. Yeah, the next one.
Which one's this one?
One of them is not even, is
Number, this one's number 2 and this one's number 3.
The one that was concerned citizen?
Yeah, that's for number 3.
Number,
You have 1 letter of objection, which is the email, number 2.
we need to enter that into the record? Mr. Hayward? Part of your, this didn't come in after hours? Okay, we got an objection, we got a motion, got a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? You got your variance. If we ever need a pool, we get a reduction. Hey, we appreciate you coming. There's been a time where pool people didn't show up. We do appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda will be the Gerald Mills property owner is presented by, where's that at? Who's here to represent Mr. Mills? You want to come up and state your name for the record?
Mr. Chairman, before we begin, just as a reminder, if you would, make sure your microphones are on and that you got the mic in front of, as close to your mouth as you feel comfortable, so we can hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can.
Karen can't hear. Pardon me?
The camera.
We don't want them to hear. Judge may be watching.
Well, I need help too. I need a record.
You did state your name for the record, right?
Yes, my name is Gerald Mills.
All right, Ms. Mills, what do you want?
I live at 513 Sandy Cay Drive. Oh, you're good now. Okay. I live at 513 Sandy Cay Drive, Miramar Beach. Purchased a home there in October of last year. And with the home, there's a 15-foot setback requirement. Due to medical reasons, I'd like to put in a therapy pool. And so I'm asking for 6 feet to allow for that.
You asking for a 6-foot variance?
Yes.
You want to go from 15 to 9 feet on the back because what's the definition of therapy pool?
A therapy pool is because I've had in the last 6 months 2 total hip replacements, and in the next 6 months I'll have 2 shoulder replacements. That it's a type of exercise to decrease impact on my joints, so that I'm able to have longevity without addressing the surgeries.
Is it a big pool, small pool, medium-sized pool?
It's a very small pool. It's a 4-foot max depth, so it's not a diving board or big community pool. It's a small 27-foot long by 6 feet wide, 4 feet deep pool.
It's 27 by 6 by 4,
Mhm.
6 feet wide,
Right, maybe, yeah, 6 feet wide.
like a big oversized hot tub, right?
Well, I guess you could set in it in a hot summer day, but it's really more for our purposes, or for my purposes, exercise.
Do you have any letters from doctors, or they always like for us to have some letters or stuff?
Yes, there's a letter from my hip surgeon in the package, and there's also a letter from my physical therapist in the package.
Daniel J. Prohaska?
That is my shoulder surgeon, where I'm scheduled for June 30th shoulder replacement.
Going in, you're gonna have, so you have letters here from 3 different medicals, right?
Right, 2 letters and 1 verification. Third, yeah. The
Can you pronounce your other doctor?
Taran Bargava.
Who's behind you?
That's in your package, you should have and I printed also copies of photos if you'd like to see them, but there's really nobody behind us. It's 60 feet to the parking lot and the condominium complex behind us, and we're 215 feet from the nearest structure.
Preservation area.
There is a 10-foot preservation spot on our lot, yes.
It's not built yet, right?
No, sir.
Any questions? We'll give you the opportunity to come back. Who's gonna build it for you?
Actually, Cox Pools, Daniel here.
I was wondering why he didn't leave. You sure? Do you promise? Have a seat right there and wait to get.
Okay.
Stephen, what do you think?
If I could have the staff report entered into the record,
Yes,
please.
so entered.
Thank you.
Along with the paper?
Along with that unanimous objection letter, yes, please. So this is,
Hang on a minute. Can we technically, do we have to accept a letter without without knowing who presented it?
What'll happen is, anything, whether it's a photograph or anything, again, this isn't a court of law, so rules of evidence don't apply. You can accept whatever you want. Generally, my advice is take it in and just give it the weight that you want. That would be like if somebody comes in and testifies,
You don't think we'd be better off to reject it so that people understand if they're gonna protest, they need to at least put their name or show up?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be the same thing if somebody showed up and said, I'm Joe Smith, and you don't know if they're Joe Smith or, somebody else. I mean, they're just giving you a statement. They've sworn in, they could be lying through their teeth. I mean, you really don't know. So, but what I would say is you do have a little bit of discretion on that, but I will tell you that more often than not on an appeal, if you categorically reject allowing people to put evidence in or statements in.
Even though they don't state their name on the document?
Yeah, there's no requirement that they have to under the law. I mean, but again, that goes to how much weight you want to give to that.
I respectfully disagree with your opinion.
I understand.
Shouldn't ask for it. Go ahead. So entered, we will accept it.
Thank
I
you.
don't think we should accept it.
I did have
Accept
opportunity.
it with protest, right? What do you
Yeah,
call that? Prejudice, right?
You can accept it with under protest if you want.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So this is a unique situation in that this is, if you can remember, I want to say it was 4 or 5 meetings ago, we had a similar situation where there was a pool constructed at a condominium, I think, development that created a situation where that preservation area could no longer be considered preservation. So it's very similar in that respect. However, this is not a common area. The preservation is not in common area. It's in a single owner's lot, right, in a platted subdivision. So if the board does approve the variance application, it will create a situation where the preservation area in this individual's lot, as well as potentially in a neighboring lot, would no longer be considered valid. which would potentially create, I don't know, I haven't had the opportunity to really dig into this, but it could potentially create a need for a replat or other
That's a little
potential.
foolish unless you can explain to me exactly why. Let's go back to the survey. Y'all sure like to do that replatting stuff, which is a lot of money, and it doesn't make sense. Why don't you say that the preservation will not stand up on this? Will not,
I think
mean,
it's possible for them to use the 10-foot setback. It's the 10-foot setback area that is the required preservation. The additional 5 feet's the rear setback. But we could give them a variance up to the preservation area without them impacting preservation.
right.
So no, the preservation actually is within,
15?
it's 10 foot into the property. So, and I think there's 15 feet from the house to the rear property line. So the preservation is actually taking up 10 foot of that. So there's no allowable encroachment that would not remove or would not go within that 10-foot buffer from the preservation area.
He's not asking to be in the preservation.
Well, that's also an issue. You can see in the staff report that he's actually showing a foot into the preservation area, but assuming he can redesign and pull it back out, he would still be within the 10-foot that would,
He's asking
Wait,
for
there's
a
a
6-foot.
there's a 10-foot buffer to the 10-foot preservation area?
yes.
Well, that's
didn't know.
already in violation if you have if you let the house be 15 feet from the rear.
That don't even make sense. That's part of the code that don't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, I'm not, I'm not here to discuss the validity of the
Well,
code.
we are here to discuss it. If you're gonna sit there and say that, that if we grant this, then he's got to replat, we're gonna respectfully disagree with it, try to keep him out of the preservation and put on the record, we don't think he should have to replat it if he's not in the preservation.
While I absolutely respect that, and if that's the board's wishes, it would still create a situation in our ongoing review of this where it would invalidate the plat because of the code requirements.
In the code where it says that.
Well, in the comp plan, it's policy C-1.7.3 that requires that there's 10 foot from any preservation area, and if there's any structures located within 10 foot, that preservation cannot be counted.
The whole plat for the subdivision is screwed up.
Potentially, yeah, it was platted before this was strengthened, if you will, in the
Before
comp
the
plan.
preservation was put, it was platted before that, so the county comes along and puts a preservation. You cause a hardship on these individuals because of the over-regulation by the county. That's our hardship. Okay.
So, okay.
Would not the, would,
There was not previously a 10-foot buffer to the preservation zone.
I believe there was some sort of language in there, but it was strengthened, to my understanding, in the 2017, 2019 changes to where it created that situation where now any structure within 10 foot creates that lack of, or that it debunks the preservation area.
was the house built before that?
That's correct.
Okay.
So they would be grandfathered in, or there's no grandfathering in of that type of?
Honestly, I didn't even think about that component.
I mean, for the house,
and we-
I understand the house would
We
potentially
can't
be
grant a variance to the comp plan.
No,
that goes
no.
beyond your authority as the zoning board
So-
of adjustment.
Respectfully disagree. I think we need to grant it. They don't like it, they need to take them. I don't think the county has the right to go to this property and put a preservation that puts them in violation and tells us that we can't take and grant a variance to something that they impose a hardship on.
Well, right now, we just need to do the evidence and testimony portion, and then for argument, that would be definitely
We
during the
can
discussion.
discuss this here, just like we're discussing it.
So I did discuss this with the applicant. I indicated that if the board chose to approve the variance granted, it would have to be pulled out of the preservation area to be in keeping with the comp plan. That he would more than likely have to undergo some additional review
Maybe
and
y'all need to
approval.
redo the comp plan that y'all redone in 2017, 2019, instead of making it, just keep on making it difficult for people to do anything with their properties. There ought to be some understanding there, you know, the property's already developed, don't cause more hardship on them.
So if I may, the code would not allow for this sort of platting to occur now. There wouldn't be preservation area in individual lots. So we have recognized that that creates an issue, but this plat was recorded prior to our understanding.
So your code just today will not allow preservation be on a lot. Is that a record?
That is my understanding.
That's the
We would
code
not
today.
allow for preservation
So
to
now
be
there's-
within an individual lot.
But in 2017, 2019, whenever y'all did this magic change of the code, y'all took and put in there that it could be on this lot, and now you telling them that it violates the preservation.
No, the changes in 2017, 2019 didn't allow for the platting of the preservation within the lot. The plat occurred prior to those changes. Now, we wouldn't allow for that type of plat. We wouldn't allow for the preservation to be outside of a common area. So,
So I think that,
Tons of subdivisions in Walton County now.
well, I think we're here to make the changes to help these people out. Anybody have any other questions for
Not for Stephen.
Stephen?
It's not his fault.
No, it's not his fault, and he knows this is not personal.
I do.
And he may be like the guy that used to sit on the board with and, you know, voted no to everything till he got ready to want a variance. Then all of a sudden he can understand yes. So Stephen may need a variance one day.
Right on.
And we're here to help you, maybe.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it. Yep. Anyone from the audience has anything to add to this? Anybody in opposition? Anybody for it? Anybody against it? Anybody has anything to say? Do you want to?
I'd like to address the anonymous letter because it brings up a point in a lot of these swimming pools that we're asked to put in setbacks have been requested by people for medical reasons. And in the past, we've made it a condition that the pool variance be granted, but that there be a stipulation that the home could not be used as a short-term vacation. And so I'm wondering if this neighborhood allows short-term vacation rentals, and if it does, are you planning to occupy the house full-time?
Hang on, get him back up here and ask him.
Well,
I think that's a fair question, and the neighborhood does allow short-term rentals. This is the only home that I own. And I have no intentions of renting it on short-term rentals.
You ever rented it? Have you filed homestead?
That is because I'm beginning my retirement. I will be filing homestead. Yes.
Are you done? I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, would you be comfortable then if we stipulated that the home not be used for a short-term vacation rental?
If that's fair across the neighborhood, I would be welcome to that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that nobody in the neighborhood can have a pool, but I think as a condition of variance, because that condition is very specific to your needs.
Right. Right.
In the past, people have abused
That's.
medical.
I understand that. It's not my intention. I don't want to be penalized for it. You know, my circumstances may change 5 years from now. I don't plan for them to. This is my retirement. But if it seems like it's a penalty, but it's not my intention.
It is. We're going to get to you. Just a minute.
I also think that 10-foot preservation area on the back of the lot needs to be preserved. So the 9-foot setback from the rear is going to be really hard to pull off. And having done some lap pools and things for clients, you could have a much narrower body of water or, you know, encroach closer to the house. And so you're showing a 5-foot separation from the house to the pool. And I think the pool code requirement is 4 feet. So you could move the existing design a foot closer to the house, meet pool code, and not encroach into that 10-foot preservation.
You guys all have this in your packet, and I think it does a great job of illustrating where the house is, where the red line's the current setback, and the white line is what we're asking for. You can see in this shot, the preserve is not even close to impacted. I mean, by actual encroachment. By measurement, you're right. I respect that. And actually, if you look at the rare earth survey, I think he actually shows that the preserve is not encroached upon. The original drawing by the pool company does. But if you look at the rare earth survey,
Right, he shows the 10-foot setback. So
mission
this is the
accomplished.
document we should use.
He's also showing a radius in that pool. And you're showing the pool design being straight. Is the pool going to be a radius that follows the contour of the property line?
I believe that based on the work with the surveyor, we're going to follow the line. That's the plan, to stay out of the preserve.
I know
Right.
Cox Pools can build a curved pool because we do it all the time.
Do you understand the homestead? I mean, I don't understand when you're waiting for your disability to file homestead. So there is homestead on the property.
Yes.
Come up and state your name for the record. Come up, state your name for the record. And the
Melinda
rea-
Mills.
And the reason I asked that, is the fact that, you say he's waiting for his disability, but, I think the letter stated it was not homestead. I just briefed it.
Yes, it
'cause and if it's your homestead, then we're just trying to, satisfy this rental issue that has been brought up. And it's your testimony also that you're not gonna rent the house.
Yes,
That it's a permanent homestead
Yes.
property, and it's been there since you purchased the house,
yes,
right?
since November of homestead.
Since November.
Yes,
Yes.
since
Very
November.
good. You have anything else you want to add?
No, just wanted, you didn't say it, so.
Just wondering, you gonna
Yeah.
pay for that
Yeah.
when you get
Yeah.
home?
Yeah.
So I think we're good with everything, right? Thank you, Mr. Mills. Appreciate it. Motion to close the public discussion.
Close.
Second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion?
We get the same issue with the building and the setbacks.
Pardon me? Pardon?
The house is in the setbacks on either side. Thank you, Stephen.
We need a motion, or do y'all want to take a break and go to lunch and, supper and come back and make a motion? Give me a motion. Come on, let's go.
I make a motion, we reduce the rear setback from 15 to 10 feet.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Did you get who made it, Karen?
Had Daryl and Jeff.
Yep. You have something to say?
I guess my only question would be, can they not shift the preservation to the front setback of the property and meet the intent of the 10-foot separation?
Pardon me?
Preservation is a square footage. So if they shifted the preservation to another part of the lot, that they could meet the preservation requirements on this property without having to go.
That require the replat?
That would require,
It would require replat.
I believe it would require a replat as well as replanting indigenous species.
It's the hardship that was created by the county that we need to address and keep it simple. And the simpleness is taking, approve this variance with a 5-foot variance and keeping the 10-foot to build the pool.
When they stated they won't rent the property, does that follow the property on from now on if they go to sell the property?
We didn't make it a stipulation of the variance that they could.
Oh, okay.
You gonna attach the survey to it?
I made the motion, yes, we would, well, no, actually, we don't need to. It's just a simple variance from 15-foot rear to 10.
All right, we have a motion, second, how the board vote? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Mills, Ms. Mills, y'all do have your variance granted tonight.
15 to 10.
I think they're still gonna have
15 to
some
10.
issues to resolve with the county.
Do what?
They still probably have some
Ask for
issues that they
nine,
need to work
You
with.
went 15. I was just making sure.
I think, I think the county shouldn't impose
They got
hardship
a
on people
variance,
and
true, but
then expect them to
They can
continue
pull it
to
back.
yeah.
spend money to correct something that the county imposed on them. I ought to, but we appreciate it, thank you.
Hello?
Just for the record, Mrs. Hayward, do you understand why we think there was a hardship that's created by the county, that the reason we justified
I will,
this variance?
yes, sir, I believe I do. I will put it in the order and you will get to read it and let me know if it's worded to your satisfaction.
Thank you. Next,
I need a restroom break real quick.
we will take a 5-minute break. Maybe 10.
Not that kind of restroom break.
Just for clarification, if y'all was to make a motion about the not renting, would that follow the property owned? It would
Yes.
stay with the property?
I will,
Sibley?
We'll ask him.
I'm Don Jackson. Charles is here.
How you pronounce his last name?
Pardon me?
How you pronounce his last name? Sibby?
Sibley.
I think I had it right. You was questioning.
You said Sybil, you said Silver. Okay.
Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
Anyway, I am the property owner and Charles is the contractor. The home in question is my residence. I'm a full-time resident in Graydon Beach and have been since 2012. I give this background only that it is relevant to what I want to do. I have 6 children and 13 grandchildren. That in no small way has something to do with my desire to build this carriage house, because although I have a nice house and it has 6 bedrooms, but it has very little family space, so to speak. So therein lies the motivation, if you will. The variance is simply to stay with the existing parking availability and not be required to accommodate 2 additional spaces on the property. Having said that, although I guess per the code, parking in the driveway in the right-of-way does not count towards that requirement for 8 vehicles, even though I have a vehicle sitting in that driveway and that right-of-way as I speak. I do have an illustration of what it looks like, but I don't, if anyone would like to see that, I'd be glad to do it. It was not included in the deck. It's the same drawing, it's the same site plan, it's in the deck, it's just showing 2 additional vehicles sitting in the driveway.
So you have a big house, and you're gonna build a carriage house. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how many square feet is in the carriage house?
I think it's 792 per the drawing.
And the code says you got to add 2 more parking spaces because of the square footage that's in the house and that's in the carriage house. Is that correct?
That's how I understand the code.
And you live at this residence. Do you rent it out? Do you rent it out?
I do not. I'm living there full-time. I was gone for a year and a half and moved back into it in October.
When you was gone, did you rent it out to, on
I did rent it out for 2 summers, 19 and 20.
Weekly?
Yeah, it was a vacation rental. I built another house at the other end of the beach, lived there after it was constructed and sold it in October, and moved back to this house.
And you're building the carriage house because you need it for your family and your grandkids.
Well, that's the motivation, because the house doesn't accommodate the size of my family very well, but yeah, that's my motivation.
But you
And,
could also rent it.
pardon me,
It will be for rent.
it will not be.
It will not be for rent?
No, no.
How many parking spaces are you required to have per the code?
8, as I understand it.
Because of the square footage of the house.
Because of the square footage of the house. Living in Graydon and owning that property for, the last 10 years, I know a little bit of the background about why that is the case. And probably you know more about it than I do, but, the biggest motivation on that parking requirement relative to the Graydon Code was Red Bar and the other retail facilities and the large 4-story supposed homes that are nothing more than apartment buildings that sit down there, and the parking problems that they cause. So I understand that. I think there's some unintended consequences of that requirement.
Well, the Red Bar don't have no parking.
Well, I hear you. I hear you. Anyway,
Maybe you can share off parking with the Red Bar. You have a pool on this property?
I do.
You gonna continue having a pool?
Pardon me?
You will still have your pool, or you
Yes.
gonna fill it up?
Yes.
Is that spot at the corner, is that your parking in the right of way at the front, at the intersection of Pine Street?
Well, in the discussion with, and I excuse that I don't know the full name, but Jason, who was the person I was talking to and had 2 or 3 conversations with him, one 20-foot street cut and nothing else was available. We gave it some other alternatives, and none of which I liked at all, but anyway, nothing else was acceptable. By the way, I've never had 8 cars parked there, just so you know.
Even when you was renting it, you still didn't have 8 cars there?
To my knowledge, I can't say that I was there every minute, but I never had an issue with the parking.
All right, let's go back and discuss, you got 7.5 foot setback on one side? Or
Yes.
2 side, one side?
On both sides,
On both sides, you have a driveway?
yes.
Driveway goes down by your house, is that right?
The driveway is between the house. Let me hand this to
In
you.
the pool.
Pardon me?
Driveway currently, that's the proposed, he's looking at that. The old version is the previous.
The parking does not change even with the carriage house. It's an elevated carriage house, so the parking remains under the carriage house just as it is now.
You're
When
gonna-
did you build the pool?
Now, it was existing, before I bought the property.
It said new pool, 14 by
So they're gonna tear out the old pool and build a new.
Okay, they're gonna tear the old pool out and build a new pool. And you got a 15-foot setback on the pool line.
There, to my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure on this, there's no setback issue relative to any of this project. Although based on the 2 prior, I think maybe I'd prefer to have a setback issue.
Did you guys look at switching the location of the carriage house and the pool, so the pool is between the carriage house and the main house? Because doing that would actually allow you to park 3 cars, in underneath the carriage house.
Well, although the drawing would indicate that I'm going to redo the pool, I'm not convinced I'm going to redo the pool. And the problem really was dependent upon whether I could build a carriage house or not. personally, and I'm going to give an opinion that in some ways is not mine to give. If I was my neighbor, I would not like that alternative.
Just a minute, we're not through with him, we'll give you a chance. Please speak in just a minute, we'll give you a chance. How long the lot is, how big?
The 50 by 140.
50 by 140. You got 2 cars underneath it.
Yep, they're gonna get 4 cars underneath it. That drawing,
Counting 4
in
cars?
50 feet, you can only get 2 cars stacked.
Like this. Back to back.
Right.
So you're saying they're gonna get 4 there?
They get 4 under there.
Where's the other parking?
5th one would happen theoretically in parallel space, but practically speaking, they're gonna get 6 cars in here, and they need 8.
I believe somewhere in the literature, the county was saying that they were worried that the 6 cars were in the setbacks.
So the 2 would theoretically be in the right-of-way, which doesn't allow them to count them.
If they were doing that, and if we were to grant his variance to 6 from 8, he would still not be legal then?
Thank you. We'll give you a chance to come back. Come up. Come up. I forgot your name.
I'm Charles Sibley, I'm with Sunset Partners. I just wanted to add that this carriage house isn't got any, it's a game room is what it is. I mean, it's just got a little small kitchen and a bathroom, and it's just really for the kids to play in. So there's really no bedrooms, no big kitchen. It's not your typical carriage house.
Right, where the county normally prescribes parking spaces based on number of bedrooms in Grayton Beach, they prescribe the number of parking spaces based on the square footage of the house. So your 800 square foot carriage house is requiring 2 additional parking spaces, right?
Correct.
Anybody has any other questions?
Just in my opinion, I would say that they gonna rent it out. I mean, it definitely be rented out at some point. It may not be right now. And we have a big parking issue down there.
But countywide, the parking requirements are for short-term rental. It's a maximum of 4 parking spaces for the size house that this is. If it were to be bigger, I think the maximum number of parking spaces for short-term rental is 6. So Grayton's parking requirements are extremely punitive relative to the short-term rental issue. So most people
They haven't bust them in over there.
get to the red bar, yeah.
I'll be glad to codify the no rental.
Sir, have a seat, 'cause we need to hear from the county. Then we're gonna listen to you again. Come on up, Mr. Stephen.
If I could have the staff report entered into the record, please.
So enter.
If I could get it out of my face. So for staff, this is a fairly clear situation where the applicant's desires here are dictating their request. There's no recognizable, special circumstance or a hardship that's not self-created.
I was reading in here that it seemed like y'all did not object to it.
You're right. I mean, there's nothing blatant in here saying that we, seek denial of this application or anything like that. But, it's, the staff report is hopefully clear that it's of staff's opinion that it doesn't satisfy the tenets of the variance code.
It's also your opinion that the parking now is parking in the right away?
It is not necessarily this staff's opinion, but I did speak with Jason Catalano. He is the staff reviewer that initially reviewed this and I believe denied the application based on the parking. He indicated that he had concerns about parking in the right-of-way.
Is there any way that they can get 6 vehicles right now without being in the right of way?
I don't have an answer for that.
An answer for it?
I don't. I apologize.
Well, you know, for the record, I don't agree with you, but I do this time. Shocked you, didn't it?
It did. It did, yes, sir.
I saw it. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jackson, you get the final say.
I would have to ask the board, who does granting this variance injure?
Nobody's any opposition.
No, I'm offering that as a question. Is this variance injure the neighbor or anyone?
All right, you throwed it out there, I'll answer that. My opinion that, Lord knows I try to look at the property owner as much as I can to try to work with the property owners when they come up. I am very concerned that the parking spaces you have right now is 6, and those are being in the right of way. I understand that that right of way may never be used, but it is in the right of way. It is a right of way that cannot be, unless you have certain connections, you can build houses in them, but usually you can't use a right of way for anything but for the right of way. And to grant you, you know, a variance for 2, you don't have 6. So can you put 6 vehicles on your property without using a right of way?
Yes, absolutely.
You can put 6 on there.
Absolutely.
Can you put 8?
No?
There's no way you,
That's why he's asking for the variance.
I'm asking.
In this drawing, it shows the 6 cars correctly. This one is being rotated out of the right-of-way as a parallel parking space, even though
It won't never happen.
won't never happen, but
Okay.
the car fits between the carriage house and the property line. But technically, it meets the intent. Now, nobody's ever gonna actually pull the car up like that, park it that way, because they'll just park it straight in, and the butt will be hanging out, but the county can't approve it that way. Even though when they have guests over, there will be cars parked in their driveway.
I understand that.
But
But there again,
still needs a variance from 8 to 6.
I understand that. But also, you know, and I don't always agree with the county when they talk about hardship. But I think that having a carriage house, this carriage house this side, I don't think that creates a hardship to grant the variance. That's my personal opinion on it. Anyone has anything else for Mr. Jackson?
Is there any way you could park in the 20-foot front setback adjacent to Pine Street on the west?
Say that again.
Is there any way you could park in the 20-foot, still on your property, and within the 20-foot front setback?
We presented that to Jason as an alternative, even though I don't like that. We presented that as an alternative, but according to what he said, you can only have one access from a county-maintained road, and I already have one.
Okay.
Now,
I see.
having said that, I know full well that there's all kinds of houses in Grayton that have more than one access from a county-maintained road, including one adjacent to me. But anyway, that was his response, was
Okay.
you can only have one
Does
access.
that apply even if you have 2 road frontages?
I don't know offhand. Maybe Mr. Schoen would. But question?
per single-family lot.
There have been, probably not the way to approach this, but there have been 3 houses built immediately adjacent to me, or 2 built and 1 significantly renovated in the last 3 years, which would be in the timeframe of this code. None of the 3, and I'm not trying to throw my neighbors under the bus, I'm just stating fact. None of the 3 would meet that code.
You had said that you were open to a deed restriction where it would not allow for rental house? Rental?
I couldn't.
I said, you had said that you were open to a deed restriction where it would run with the land, that you wouldn't, the house couldn't be rented?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Having done some design work in Grayton Beach over the last 5 years, I can tell you the county has always forced us to provide the required number of parking spaces on project in there. And
Well,
it is,
I understand that, and I'm not questioning that at all. But I would also say what happens is, after the fact, after the person gets the certificate of occupancy, the world suddenly changes.
I like to take and ask Stephen about that. If you have 2 streets, code says that you can only have 1 driveway. That's what the code said. And can we grant a variance to that part of the code, where he can have a driveway on Pine Street?
We've done that.
I did just read the code. It actually says even in the event of a double frontage lot like this situation, that the access would still be limited to that 20-foot single, but it would be on the lower classification roadway. I'm assuming that's not an issue here. They both are probably just local neighborhood roads. I don't know what's in the comp plan as it relates to that access. I would imagine that if it's not there, it could certainly be applied for, and the board, if they so if you so choose, could certainly approve that variance request.
Mr. Jackson, you need to come up here till we get through with you. Come back up here. We're trying to work out something here for you. All right, Mr. Burgess, talk to him about that 20 foot on the front. Go ahead, Jeff.
so we had another applicant come through here not too long ago where I believe we granted them a variance for a second curb cut to meet the parking requirements. And I'm aware of other homes in Grayton that use pine straw parking pads to park vehicles.
Okay. What? Are you good with that?
Well, I'm not sure. I hear what he's saying. I'm just not.
I would be inclined for you to show vehicles in your 20-foot front setback to meet your parking requirement.
On Pine Street.
Pine Street, and you would not formally have a paved access to those parking places. But I think that this variance could grant you the ability to put the cars in there to meet the parking requirement, where you would not have a formal paved access to those parking spaces, but it would be pine straw parking. And
Well, I'm not opposed to that in any way. That would have to be communicated as part of the variance, because that was exactly one of the alternatives presented to.
But we're gonna get there, Mr. Jackson. This is what I think this is the opinion of the board. And we're hoping that you will work with us on this, that, we will allow you to have a curb cut on Pine Street for you to get your 8 parking spaces on your lot. You good with that?
Yes, I'm good
I'm
with
very
that.
good with that, because I think that will get you out of the right of way. And I'd rather have you a curb cut to get out of the right of way for the safety of whoever may be driving up down the right of way. So if you're good with that, is there any question for the board? If you're good with it, I think we're in good shape.
We'll reflect that then.
Well, we gotta pass it first.
Yeah, assuming that occurs, that means that you would not have a reduction. Your request as presented would not go forward. They're
No, I
proposing
understand
alternative.
that.
We're gonna, You can have a seat. Thank you. Motion, proposed public discussion.
Motion to close public discussion.
Second.
Second.
Motion. Now listen, we got a motion. Before you make the motion, I think it need to be clarified that he is asking for a variance from 6 to 8. You have a motion to not to deny the variance, but somewhere in that motion, I think we can put in there that, to deny the variance as presented, but grant him a variance for the curb cut on Pine Street to get the 8 parking.
Need to be 20 feet. We need to specify the footage. I was gonna say,
We're not gonna specify the curb cut. We're just gonna need to specify that he can have a curb cut, not to exceed 20 feet.
And I think why this would be so attractive is that when it's completed,
Before we get into discussion, I was
Need a
trying to
motion?
clarify the wordage of the motion to deny the motion, but grant the variance. You understand? You gotta deny the, you
do
got,
we have to make a mention of the
we don't normally.
request? Or can we
He's
not just
asking-
grant him a variance to address his parking needs?
he's asking
Ask
for
Hayward.
a variance to, the 8 parking. So if you do not grant him that variance, you say, okay, we're gonna give you a variance.
I think I know how to word this.
All right?
I'd like to make a motion that in lieu of a variance to reduce his parking from 8 to 6, that the board grant the ability to have a second curb cut off of Pine Street to meet the parking requirement.
Second?
Second.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Discussion.
It was me.
I think we discussed it to death. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Mr. Jackson, do you know what we just done for you? Yes. You went from getting a denial to helping you have a nice place at Grayton Beach with parking. We're getting to rent it out for the weekend? We thank you, Mr. Jackson. Appreciate your patience. Appreciate you coming. Motion, wait a minute, grant, we gotta do
Minutes.
the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion to,
Adjourn?
yeah,
I make a motion to adjourn.
second,
Second.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. You're done good tonight, you're done good. You lost that attitude.
We try, we
You
try.
coming around.
Goodbye.
I think we done outstanding tonight.